Let's talk about acceptance and non-resistance. When something happens and you don't accept it, you just have resistance in your mind. And sometimes it's justified, but the psychological effect of it is very high. It's just going to make you more stubborn, it's going to make you full of worry, full of stress. So one of the biggest principles is acceptance. It's gaining closure on things when they happen and deciding to later move on. Let's take a look.
Acceptance is important in order to let go of things and gain closure. A significant part of anxiety, fear, and other worries comes simply from not accepting something or resisting it. The more that you resist something, the more that it stays. There's a Zen saying that what you resist persists. Research, documented in the book The Effortless Experience, dictates that 2/3 of our total effort is mental effort. It counts more than the actual effort needed to do something. In other words, when you think that something takes effort, you're right. And when you think that it doesn't, you're right as well. So, for anything that happened to us in the past, either yesterday or 10 years ago, the decision to accept it and gain closure on it is very powerful. And even for present or future topics, trying to resist them will only create unnecessary worry. This can apply to anything in life. If you're going to have a hard conversation with someone, you can either resist it, dread it, fear it, and so on, or you can simply accept that it needs to be done and go. Or maybe you committed to going running on a cold Saturday morning with a friend, and now you just don't want to. You can either resist it, or you can just go. Or maybe it's that your parents, even after 20 years, for example, still judge you on your career path. You can still resist going to meet with them, anticipate a lot of drama, or you can just accept that it's how things are and go. One important distinction to make here is that acceptance doesn't necessarily mean agreement at all. You don't have to agree with negative events, people, or others, but you do need to accept that they exist. That's the key here. For example, if someone betrayed you in the past, you don't need to forgive them, but you do need to accept that this happened, because otherwise, whatever is in your mind will persist, creating a blockage. One of the most powerful techniques to cultivate acceptance is being grateful, for one very simple reason. When you are grateful for something, you will necessarily accept it. There is no way to be grateful for something and still resist it. It's like that physiology trick. When you stand tall with the body language of a winner, you can't feel negative emotions because your body is going to create positive hormones. So one thing prevents the other. It's the same exact thing here. When you're grateful for something negative, you can't be resisting it because you have to accept it in order to be grateful. So, for example, if someone betrayed you in your past, be grateful for what you learned with the experience. Maybe you became a better judge of people, maybe you switched companies and found a better opportunity. Whatever it is, be grateful for it. Or maybe you were fired from your dream job. If that's the case, be grateful for what it gave you. So, gratefulness helps us close the chapter on something and move on to the next phase of your life. And here is the thing. In some cases, maybe it's that you have already moved on, but you haven't acknowledged it. So maybe this is something that happened years ago and you still can't accept it. In this case, it's not about moving on, but it's about realizing that you've already moved on. For example, maybe you were fired from a job 10 years ago and there was no reason for it. And now you've built an amazing career and you've surpassed your performance and revenue in every single aspect. But you still haven't accepted that you were fired at that time. So in this case, you have already actually moved on, but you still haven't accepted this. And you're not going to feel like you've moved on until you've accepted it. What are some examples of accepting and non-resistant? Well, what we were talking about 10 seconds ago, being fired. If you're fired, especially without a proper justification, that can sting for a long time. But again, the key is you can keep ruminating about it, or you can accept it and move on to the next thing. And only one of these two is going to help you in the long term. Another example is past betrayals. Maybe a person close to you stole from you, stabbed you in the back, or others. This especially hurts for people that you were very close with. But again, you can keep thinking about it, or you can make your peace with it, be grateful, and move on. And finally, your own imperfections as well. You may not have the body that you want, or the person closest to you may still disagree on things important to you, or you may have a personality trait that you don't want to recognize. Again, you can either fight it or accept it with gratitude. So, what are our key takeaways here? The first is acceptance. Acceptance is all about not resisting something that may have happened or will happen. Remember, you don't have to agree with that person or event or occurrence, but you do have to accept that it exists, because otherwise you keep resisting it and you're not going to be able to actually move on. The second is that acceptance works for anything. You may have to cultivate acceptance for past acts by others or by yourself, or for the personality of different people, for past actions, or any other element of life. It always works in the same way. And finally, gratefulness is a great shortcut for acceptance. When you clarify what you're grateful for, you can't keep resisting it. You allow yourself to close the door.
So as you see, acceptance and non-resistance are crucial. When something happens, even if it's bad, you can fix it. But in order to fix it, you first have to accept it. If you keep resisting it in your mind, it's not going to go well, and you're just poisoning yourself from the inside.